Civ's Frontiers workshop. The first speaker this after coffee break is Ali Mahdipour Shirayeh from PMH, and we'll be talking on revolutionizing medicine with generative AI from data to discovery. Please go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much. First of all, I would like to thank you, the organizers, Muhammad and Saif, for the invitation. So today's talk is about using generative AI in medicine. I don't have much about mathematics in it, but I hope that at the end of this talk you would have some interesting stuff to be used in your mathematical works. So I will start with some introduction about AI and what generative AI is, and how we can use that for a specific type of actions that we have in medicine, like diagnosis, treatment, research in medicine, and so forth. And then I will provide sort of idea about how challenges and limitations are, and how we see the future in this direction. The onset of generative AI back sometimes between 1960 and 1970, when Markov chain as well as stochastic modeling has been used to provide sort of a sequence of texts. And basically they were using a bunch of different frequencies of different words, and then they were trying to predict the next word when we have a bunch of different words together, and we want to predict the next one. So for that, they were using sort of like probability distribution to predict what would be the next word. Then in 1990, when artificial neural network started to rise, we had lots of advancement in terms of generative models. So artificial neural network is trying to capture whatever we have in brain synapse when we have a bunch of different layers of neurons, how they're connected to each other, and how we can make decisions. Let's say human being is seeing a bunch of different images by the eyes, and they can recognize which one is, like, let's say cat, which one is dog, and so forth. So they were trying to model this so that machine can understand all the mechanism of different layers in a neural network. Some models at the time related to this topic were Hopfield network and Boltzmann machines. They were sort of like recurrent neural network models. They were trying to understand different layers of information so that they can predict or provide some text based on what we had from before. Then at 2014, there was the onset of using GANs. GANs is generative adversarial networks. This is a combination of two neural networks together. One of them is called generator, another one is called discriminator. So generator is trying to provide realistic data out of original data that we have. And discriminator is trying to understand if that is a real or fake information. So these two neural networks work with each other, against each other, and complement each other so that we can provide those images that nobody can detect if they're real or they're fake. So with a high resolution of realistic data, but of course synthetic data. So that happens at 2014, and afterwards we had lots of advancements in medicine using GANs or other techniques that have been generated. But into 2020, when was the rise of transformers and large language models, has been a huge advancement in generative AI. So I will go through these topics in next slides, but whatever we have nowadays in terms of GPT or BERT or Llama or Gemini, they're coming from a large language model in which we try to train model machines against a huge and vast amount of data. Let's say we have a machine and we have a bunch of libraries, huge libraries in front of the machine, and we ask machine to learn whatever exists in those libraries. And then we expect machine to answer some questions and provide human level sort of information. So if I return back to this slide, in here you see sort of a smooth curve, which is showing, this is called hype cycle. It's sort of a model that's showing, adoption of different technologies, AI technologies, based on the expectations that we have in regards to some of the main features that we have for that technology. So starting with early usage of that technology all the way to go to the advanced one, we see how there was sort of like peak before 2014, and then afterwards, the onset of some of the very common tools like chatbots and so forth has been started to be used, and we are starting to see the next peak later on. Okay, so what is generative AI? So generative AI is a type of foundation models. So foundation models are related to those larger scale artificial intelligence tools that have been trained against a vast amount of data. As I mentioned, a huge library of information from different types. They can adapt to any sort of context and answer, the questions that we have. But one of the applications that we have for foundation models is called generative AI. So generative AI is supposed to work on specific, type of context and provide and create some new content out of those. Like we have a bunch of different images and we want to provide completely new image, so we can use a generative AI. Or if you have a voice and we want to provide something like artificial person giving a lecture somewhere, but that person doesn't exist, we can use generative AI. Or if you want to provide text or molecular structures and so forth, so we can use generative AI. And if you see in here, so basically we have artificial intelligence, we have foundation models underneath, and then in the overlap part of machine learning and neural network, we have basically deep learning, generative AI, and large language model. So large language model is a type of generative AI, which is associated with text. That's the thing that I'm going through right now. So LLMs, or large language models, are those models trained against text. So they're a specific type of generative AI associated with different texts that we have. This text can come from different sources like weblogs, papers, different documents that we have. So some of the techniques, as you know, like GPT-4o1 or BERT, Llama, Gemini, all are working with different texts. The goal is generating sort of like human level text. So they can understand and provide and generate human level information. So they have lots of benefits in them. So one of the main important thing is about sentimental sort of question answering. They can provide sentimental information at human level. But why we are using LLM in medicine? We can use LLMs for a variety of different applications. One of them is related to extracting information from the documents that are available. If a human wants to do so, it takes a long time. But for machines, it's super easy. If they have access to pre-trained models, we can simply apply those and extract information that we want. That's where the large language models are super important in this application. So information extraction, and then based on whatever we found for, let's say, a specific person, we can provide personalized patient care. Large language model can be also used for making summaries of text. Let's say you have a bunch of different papers, you don't have time to go through them, so they can provide a summary, well-structured summary of those information that you have. Large language model can also be used for finding, as you know, we are trying to provide combination of different therapies together and see which one would be optimized solution for a specific person. So we can use large language model to find most effective drug combinations or therapies that we want to try for a specific patient. So in here you see some of the inputs to large language models. So we can have text, we can have image, speech, structured data, unstructured data, and so forth, even codes or videos. And then large language model is trying to convert all of those to text and working on those and providing some solutions like text summarization or language translation, sentimental analysis, and so forth. In medicine, basically, we have a bunch of different inputs, and based on all different steps that we take for specific large language model agent that we're trying, we can have so many different applications, like working with chatbots. Let's say, students in medical school, they want to answer some of the questions in medicine. So they can simply write, a sentence and ask about the specific thing, and large language model can go through some of the in-house documentations and provide contextually relevant solutions or answers to those questions. Or they can go through, cancer detection sort of applications, or we can use in different, text to protein, let's say generation and so forth. So medical care, if you want to optimize something in medicine, we can use LLM for those reasons, for those applications as well. Another type of applications of generative AI that I want to go through is usage of this technique in drug discovery. So why is it important? Because we have lots of chemical and molecular spaces that we can generate by using generative AI. And then we can go through a combination of so many different drugs to see how well we can adopt those drugs to a specific person based on the historical information that we have from that patient. One of the companies which is working in this direction is DeepMind. DeepMind is providing AlphaFold, which is providing a bunch of different protein structures. And of course, we can afterwards see protein-protein reactions, which is at a really high resolution and high accuracy. So as you can see in this picture, so blue is what we have in experimental results, and green is basically what we have in computational based on generative AI. And you see how close they are in terms of generating this sort of proteins. There are some other companies like BVAI or Exscientia. So those are working on designing some molecules that can target specific cancer pathways. Or we have other applications of generative AI related to clinical trials, specifically for cancer. And there are some other companies who are using GANs to generate novel molecular structures. Why is it important? Because it's quite hard and expensive in terms of resources and time that we have. So we can use techniques like GANs to provide those specific structures and try everything virtually instead of going to the lab and trying those. Another application is related to generating biomarkers. So as you know, biomarkers are the most reliable sort of indicator of cancer. When we want to see if cancer is evolving over time, how is it interacting with the environment, and what are the different features of epigenetic or genetic features. So we can use biomarkers. But why is it important? Because if we have those biomarkers, then we can provide, let's say, signature gene for cancer evolution, or we can go through some of the biomarkers and provide sort of like drug and better, more intense therapies. So we can use generative AI to do so, to find new biomarkers, simply by going through literature, seeing different works has been done, doing sort of like data mining to understand and make connection between different biomarkers. One of the companies that are, some of the companies that are working in this regard is Tempus and Foundation Medicine. They're trying to predict sort of like cancer biomarkers for personalized therapy. And of course, you can see in here so many different companies are working in this regard. But biomarkers for any specific application can be found in here. But these are some of many companies working in this direction. OpenAI and DeepMind are also working in this regard. They want, as I mentioned, DeepMind, by using an AlphaFold, is trying to find new protein structures. We're going to take such a long time for a human being to provide those by using machines and finding the interactions between those proteins and cancer markers. So precision medicine is one of the fields which is super hot these days because we know even within a specific cancer type, we have a bunch of different types, but within each of those subtypes, human beings are completely different due to their, let's say, physical features or their age or different conditions they're living with. So it's super important to personalize what we have. It's super important to have personalized treatments for those patients. How generative AI is helping us in this regard. So we can use large language models in this regard for having sort of treatment recommendations. So it will go through a bunch of different historical information that we have for each person, each patient in a specific type of cancer, using the specific regulations. Let's say, I know based on some of the papers that this is the way the cancer is evolving. So I can use this with large language model. This is coming from a concept called RAG system, which means you have a pre-trained model, like large language model, and you have sort of in-house regulations. Let's say I'm working in a hospital. The information that I have are completely confidential, so I can't use any large language model to train against those data, because otherwise there would be sort of like data leakage, right? So I can use a pre-trained model plus a RAG system, which is providing all information that I have within the company or organization that I'm working with, and then using those for sort of a recommendation system. It will recommend me something based on all information that I have based on large language model, as well as the information that I have within, let's say, hospital or organization that I'm working with. One of the techniques that has been used a lot is Watson for oncology, made by IBM. So this is sort of like complementary tool for oncologists that they can go through some evidence-based sort of like treatment options that they have. So they have sort of idea about the patient, so they can use LLM model to provide sort of options that they can select. And this is working at a really high accuracy these days. Also, we can use generative AI for finding cancer drugs, and we can try to find all different options of those drugs that we have and all different combinations of those drugs by using generative AI. And of course, it can help us to understand how tumor growth is happening and how we can understand the progression of cancer through tumorigenesis, or using different treatments on those type of cancers. So all of this information can come from generative AI. One more thing that I want to highlight here is if you are working with a specific data set, and that data set is small, you need to have more information to make sure that the simulation you're doing or whatever sort of like research you're doing. So you can use generative AI to provide synthetic data. So like I had a bunch of different images. I'm trying to use those images to provide sort of like a realistic image that nobody can distinguish between reality or fake sort of images. You can do it for data as well. So if I have a small population of single cell information, let's say, and I need to expand it to a larger larger scale so that I can have better performance of the machine learning technique that I have, or a better statistic of what they want to do, I can use generative AI. So generative AI will help me to expand data points that I have so that I can have a high accuracy and better performance of the technique that I'm trying to. And you can simply check if the synthetic data that you are generated by generative AI is mirroring statistical properties and diversity of the original data set that you have. So all of those are other applications of generative AI. Generative AI can be used also for imaging. So yes. Oh, 1 minute. Okay. So it can be used for cancer imaging. So if I have a bunch of different MRIs or CT scan or IF fish sort of images, that are not accurate, I can use generative AI to modify them so that I can have a high resolution images out of lower quality sort of scans. DeepMind is working in this direction as well in radiotherapy when they're working on head and neck cancer, as well as we can use this technique for tumor progression when we have different time steps on different snapshots of scans, and we can see how they're evolving over time. Another application would be, since I don't have much time left, so I will go quickly through these slides. So one of the applications that we have is for surgery. So generative AI would help us for surgery. And in this regard, Syntegra is one of the companies that is working in this direction, and Touch Surgery is another one. So they can help physicists to work a little bit more on this part as well. This is a new application of generative AI. Actually, I would say AI in regard with providing sort of virtual cell. This paper has been published, I think, last week. So in this paper, they're trying to show that how we can virtually generate a cell environment so that we can simulate cellular process. So let's say I have a bunch of information about single cells, and I'm doing lots of simulations. Now I can generate the cell itself as well. So you can try to add as many features as you want, the functionality in the cell that you want, and then try to work on the cell interaction and so forth. So I found it really useful application in medicine. So these are some of the limitations that we have. Data privacy is still an issue. It's important to data governance, and keeping data private is super important. Model interpretability is really important because we need to explain what we are seeing in the models and explain it to other stakeholders. This is super important. We don't have that much clean data. This is another issue. If we want to train a model against data, we need to have clean data. And of course, they need to pass lots of regulations, like being approved by FDA or EMA for those regulations. This is my last slide, feature direction. Of course, we want to emerge lots of omics that we have, multi-omics data that we have in cancer research to have sort of the holistic cancer model. Another future direction is in immunotherapy, when we want to provide personalized vaccines. But we can use generative AI in that direction as well. Genetic editing and using CRISPR is another thing that we need to modify based on generative AI, combining generative AI and CRISPR. And of course, real-time cancer treatment that we want to provide to patients. Thanks very much for your attention. Happy to answer your questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ali. I think in the interest of time, we will wait. You can have questions at the lunch.